Revealed, how a millionaire CEO's surprising kiss transformed his life and his heart in 30 days. Jack Thompson, a self-made millionaire, stood at the entrance of the gala, light glimmering off the marble floors and the laughter of the elite swirling around him like confetti. A world he had aspired to join, yet felt so foreign and hollow. The stress lines on his forehead were etched deeper than any wealth could conceal. He clasped the glass of champagne tighter, feeling the icy rupture within himself. Was this what success felt like? Invited by the rich, but trapped in emotional bankruptcy, isolated amidst the glitz. The resentment bubbled just beneath the surface. He could almost hear his father's voice, reminding him of the value of humility, hard work, and ethics, all drowned out now by the incessant noise of wealth all around him. Polished faces exchanged empty pleasantries. This wasn't his scene. The flash and dash made him uneasy. Each patron he greeted felt like another weight on his chest, bearing down like the smoggy Chicago skyline that pressed against his apartment's windows. How far he had come from delivering newspapers to running a tech empire, but at what cost? He raised the glass to his lips, forcing the bubbles down his throat, wondering if it would expand beyond his discomfort. Then he saw her, Emily, a spark of warmth piercing through his corporate malaise. She laughed effortlessly, illuminating the space around her. Their eyes locked. The world faded as his attention honed in on her compassionate nature. He hesitated, questioning whether this magnetic draw was the answer to a question he never dared to voice. Wasn't this what he longed for? An emotional connection instead of transactions. As she drew closer, the air buzzed with potential. A kiss, a mere spark of spontaneity, ignited his heart. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced in the cold corporate dealing. But with it came a surge of confusion. Did he genuinely feel this way, or was it just the fizz of the champagne? This kiss stirred something buried deep, contentment mingled with fear of embracing what he had long forsaken. Could love give life meaning beyond wealth? Could he reconcile with his estranged father, the worker whose calloused hands mirrored the struggles Jack ruthlessly worked to escape? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every sleepless night that followed, Jack wrestled with the two worlds he occupied, each demanding his all. Board meetings flashed with urgency. Executives eyed his distraction, but he was lost in thought. He stumbled upon the thought of returning home to his father, not out of obligation, but from yearning to reconnect. Ambition cloaked his insecurities, feeding the anxiety about what his father might think of the man he had become. Had he truly traded all that was good for dollars and accolades? One night, the compulsion drove him to his father's garage, rifling through the remnants of their past. There, buried beneath dust and memories, lay a hidden box. Inside, letters spilled forth revealing struggles Jack never knew about, the sacrifices, the resilience that shaped his father's life and values. The stakes rose. Jack felt the grip on his heart tighten, a force urging him to confront the very implications of his insatiable climb. It had always been about power, but now he saw the fracture it had inspired. As the walls of his empire felt increasingly confining, a knock echoed through his office, pulling him from his spiraling thoughts. His father stood at the threshold, holding the very letters that could dismantle Jack's steel fortress of success. Anger, love, regret all intermingled in that moment. Jack knew the impending confrontation would unravel everything. Would he choose the power of true love and connection, or would the seduction of wealth secure his future? The choice lay heavy, like a truth he couldn't ignore, as they stood, worlds apart, desperate to bridge the gap. The shadows from his past loomed larger, whispering the hardest truth: success was worth nothing without those bonds that shaped him. The silence hung heavy between them, a chasm filled with years of absence and misunderstanding. Jack's father, Robert, took a step inside the office. The faint scent of garage oil clung to him, a stark contrast to the sterile aroma of Jack's corporate world. The letters crumpled in his hands seemed to weigh more than the steel beams that supported the skyscraper outside. Jack, Robert's voice cracked slightly, revealing a vulnerability that belied his tough exterior. "We need to talk." Jack felt the distance in his father's tone, the unspoken resentment lurking just beneath the surface. For years, Jack had chased accolades, believing they were the ticket to validation not just from the world, but from his father. Yet, standing here, now, he questioned the very foundation upon which his empire had been built. Had all those late nights and missed family dinners truly been worth it? "I was going to call you," Jack started, the words slipping out more awkwardly than he intended. He rubbed the back of his neck, a habit resurfacing from childhood, a gesture of uncertainty. "I found your old letters." "I've been thinking about," he let the sentence dangle, not yet daring to plunge into the emotional depths that awaited them. Robert's brow furrowed, his eyes narrowing. "You're thinking about what? About how to win the next award? To keep climbing higher? That's why you masked everything behind these walls?" His voice hardened, a defense mechanism honed over decades of disappointment. "It's not like that anymore," Jack shot back, his own anger surfacing. "I was lost in ambition, but things have changed. I'm questioning everything about my life, the choices, the relationships. All of it." For an instant, a flicker of hope sparked in Robert's weary eyes. "And what about love, Jack? Do you think it just appears when you're ready to accept it, or does it take work?" The emphasis on work echoed in Jack's mind, reminding him of countless evenings spent strategizing business growth rather than nurturing familial connections. Jack took a deep breath, a wave of resolve forming in his chest. "I kissed someone. Emily. It was different, intense. I think I could be happy with her, but I don't know who I am anymore." The words poured out, raw and unguarded. He realized it was more than a declaration. It was an admission of his fear. Real, genuine happiness eluded him, shrouded in the fog of his own making. "Then you have to confront it, Jack. Not just with her, but with the ghosts that haunt you," Robert replied, softer now, the walls between father and son beginning to crumble. "But what if my past dictates my future?" Jack's voice shook, torn between the man he had become and the boy who longed for his father's approval. Robert stepped forward, placing the letters down like sacred commitments, connecting them through the years. "If you let it, it will. But you can choose differently. Break the cycle. Walk into those fears instead of letting them hold you hostage." Jack felt the weight of his father's words settle over him like a heavy blanket. Could he truly rewrite his narrative? Jack took a moment, allowing the reality of his father's message to sink in. What if the greatest success he could achieve wasn't on Wall Street, but in personal connections, mending the torn fabric of love and acceptance with those he had pushed away? Suddenly, the sound of a text notification interrupted the tension, pulling Jack's focus back to the present. It was a message from Emily, innocent yet pulsating with warmth, asking when they could meet again. The temptation to drift back into the simplicity of her laughter and the depth of those moments felt strong, but he knew he had to face his fears first. "Dad," Jack began, but the resolve in his heart had shifted. The decision loomed: could he truly embrace the messy, unpredictable nature of love, even as he faced the impending confrontation with himself and his father? "Can we talk about Emily?" he asked, the urgency of the moment propelling him forward, ready to reclaim aspects of his life he had neglected for far too long. The familiar feeling of trepidation surfaced alongside a flicker of newfound determination, a blend that weakened the grip of fear within him. As Robert nodded, Jack realized the hardest journey lay ahead. The moment had come for him to embrace the difficult reconciliation not just with his father, but also with the complexity of love he had long avoided. And as the tension hummed through the room, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. What would happen if reopening these old wounds led to new discoveries, both painful and liberating? Jack sat across from Robert, the table between them a battlefield of words unspoken. As he looked into his father's eyes, he felt the weight of unprocessed emotions, fear, and a flickering ember of hope. Their histories intertwined like dark vines choking the life out of a struggling tree, and Jack understood now that the first step toward healing was not skirting around the issues but confronting them. "Emily," he began, the name flowing off his tongue like a healing balm. "She's someone I want to know better. Not just the careless flirtations or moments of passion. I want to truly connect with her, but I'm afraid." The admission hung thick in the air, charged with vulnerability. Robert leaned back slightly, his expression softening. Fear is not a weakness, Jack. It shows that you care. Accept that fear, acknowledge it, and let it guide you instead of imprisoning you. Jack's mind raced, each thought a frantic shuffling through memories of board meetings and solitary victories. Yet here he was voicing his wishes, his doubts, and it felt both liberating and terrifying. The very ambition that had driven him to the highest echelons of business now felt like a tether pulling him away from everything that mattered. His father wasn't merely a voice of judgment, he was a caged bird calling out to liberate his own son. I need to learn how to be vulnerable, Jack confessed. The words felt foreign as they escaped his lips, but the visceral truth weighed heavily on his heart. I need to be willing to risk disappointment for the chance of something real. But how? Start with the small things, Robert suggested, his voice steady. Reach out to her, ask her about her dreams, her fears. Let her know you're willing to be open. A smirk danced on the older man's lips, a tender invitation to explore. You're learning to rebuild not just a foundation in business, but a home within your own heart. Jack considered the advice, grappling with the reality of being raw and open. Perhaps it was time to bend the rigid structures he had put in place both in his work and personal life. Success had always felt like a solitary peak. But what if the reward was meant to be shared? He inhaled, the air sharp with resolve. I'll text her now, he said, unflinchingly absconding the anxiety that churned in his stomach. He had drafted a message before, it was just a matter of delivering the courage to hit send. His fingers hovered over the screen, a quick pulse of memories rushing through him, shared moments set against the backdrop of laughter and blooming chemistry. Jack typed, feeling more alive with every keystroke. Hey, Emily. I've been thinking about us. Can we meet soon? I want to talk. Before he could overthink his decision, he felt the moment shift, lighting the path ahead. He pressed send, and an overwhelming mixture of fear and anticipation surged through him. Consciously stepping into the unknown felt like freefalling, yet, this time, he refused to shut his eyes. Done, he announced, a grin finding its way to his face. There was a hushed thrill beneath the surface. Stephen Covey's words echoed from his memories, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Good, Robert said, his expression morphing into one of pride. That's the first step. Take it slowly, though. You'll have to face the doubts in yourself as well as the uncertainty in her heart. Jack nodded, swallowing hard against the impending waterslide of vulnerability. What lay ahead would require more than an emotional acknowledgement. It demanded action, courage, and a commitment to himself above all else. As they settled back into a companionable silence, the relief of that single decision mingled with the acknowledgement of his fragility. He had the tools now, the drive to confront the fears, the openness to nurture connections. But as certainty blossomed, curiosity snaked through him. What would Emily say? In that moment, the phone chimed in response, a ripple of anxiety electrifying the air. He buried his fingers into his palms, a silent plea lingering in his thoughts. Would their conversation unveil new fears, or ignite a flame of potential between them? Jack looked through the glass wall, the horizon unfurling with possibilities both promising and frightening. But one thing became crystal clear. The time had come to face his emotions head-on, along with what lay beyond that simple text. What awaited him on the other side would define not just his connection with Emily, but also the man he wanted to become. With a mixture of hope and trepidation coursing through him, he opened the message, bracing himself for the response that could either launch him into the next chapter of his life or send him spiraling back into his past. Jack's heart hammered against his ribcage as he opened Emily's reply, the anticipation sending shockwaves through his body. Hey, Jack. I'd love to meet. How about this weekend? Can't wait to catch up. A wave of relief washed over him, tinged with exhilaration. The simpleness of her words felt almost surreal against the storm of complexity whirling in his mind. Jack leaned back in his chair, momentarily absorbed in a flood of thoughts. He felt a yearning to connect more deeply with her but was painfully aware that revealing too much too soon could send her running. What did this even mean? Was he ready to navigate this territory filled with emotions he had long kept buried? The answer felt elusive. He texted her back, suggesting a cozy coffee shop not too far from their workplace. Neutral ground, he thought. He needed space to feel out this new connection without the pressure of expectation. The risk was daunting. Everything within him screamed to take control, yet this new world of vulnerability demanded the opposite. The next few days crawled by, each tick of the clock amplifying his nervous energy. He considered the threads of their past interactions, the gleam in her eyes when she laughed, the way her smile seemed to light up even the dullest meeting. Each memory acted as a guidepost toward healing, yet every what if felt like an anchor, holding him back. Jack took stock of the moments that led him here, the sterile boardrooms where numbers and profits reigned supreme, the emptiness that shadowed his triumphs. He realized how these experiences had shaped his understanding of success. He had built a fortress around himself, but now that fortress felt more like a cage, stifling not only personal connections but his own growth. The morning of their meeting, a strange mix of excitement and dread gripped him. He wanted to appear confident but needed to embrace the very vulnerability he had pledged to practice. He spent extra time selecting an outfit, hoping it would convey a sense of readiness he didn't entirely feel. As he drove to the cafe, he rehearsed potential topics in his mind. It was crucial to strike the right balance, casual yet meaningful, engaging yet authentic. He found himself questioning why he was compelled to draw her closer when he had spent so much time pushing people away. Jack realized he was grappling with more than just a romantic encounter. This was about the redefinition of himself. Upon entering the cafe, Jack spotted her seated at a small round table near the window, sunlight dancing on her hair. She looked up with an inviting smile, and for the first moment, the tumult within him faded. It was just the two of them, the outside world blurring into obscurity. "Hey, glad you could make it," Emily greeted, exuding warmth that instantly put him at ease. "Of course. I wouldn't miss it," he replied, his voice steady despite the racing thoughts that continued to ping-pong in his mind. They exchanged pleasantries, sipped coffee, and the atmosphere felt charged yet approachable. But as their conversation deepened, a wobble of anxiety struck him again. He heard himself asking about her dreams, a simple yet profound inquiry that felt uncharacteristically brave. Responding with enthusiasm, Emily flooded the space with words about pursuing architecture and how she longed to make an impact through design. Her passion was palpable, and Jack felt himself drawn to her in a way he hadn't anticipated. He thought about sharing his fears, the grueling reality that success without connection felt hollow. But when it came time to dig deeper, the shadows of doubt crept back in, tempting him to retreat behind the walls he had so carefully constructed. "Jack?" Emily's voice was softer now, a gentle nudge pulling him from his thoughts. "What about you? What makes you tick?" Sweat pricked at his brow as he felt every eye in the cafe was suddenly on him. Sharing felt like a plunge into the abyss, confronting familiarity with uncertainty. But a shift had begun, a hunger for authenticity ignited a determination within him. Jack hesitated, poised at the edge of a cliff. "I've spent so many years striding for success, but I realize that real achievement comes when we're connected to others, when we're vulnerable." The words felt like liberation. There was no turning back now. Jack locked eyes with Emily, searching for understanding beyond mere curiosity. But before he could grasp where that revelation might lead him, the cafe door swung open with a rush, drawing their shared energy. In that instant, Jack had unlocked a door to himself. But what stands behind it? Would he embrace the unknown, or would fear chain him back, ensuring he remained tethered to his ambitions? The world narrowed to Emily's questioning gaze, and within it, he sensed a possibility that could change the trajectory of his life. Would he step forward into this new reality or retreat into safety? As tension hung thick in the air, he could almost hear the echo of his father's words, resonating louder than any doubt. This was his moment to confront his past, redefine his future, and embrace what was yet unknown. Jack's breath caught in his throat as those simple words hung between them. The vibrant energy of the cafe pulsated around him, but inside, he felt as if he were suspended in time. Emily's gaze pierced through him, and for a moment, the world outside faded. He had peeled back a layer, exposing his true self in a manner he had historically found terrifying. The moment felt cathartic, like exhaling after holding his breath for too long. And yet, doubt crept through the cracks. What if she saw him as weak? What if his admission pushed her away? He had fought hard to build his business acumen, his shield of success, and behind that armor, admitting vulnerability felt like stepping out of a fort into open fire, but Emily's expression didn't waver. Her brows furrowed briefly in thought, and then she leaned in slightly, prompting him to continue. "Look, Jack," she said, her voice a thread of encouragement. "I can't imagine the pressure you've been under. But admitting what you value that takes more strength than you know." His heart swelled at her response, but the words "more strength" echoed in his mind, dredging up memories of countless business deals made under pretense. The deals that had brought him wealth but eroded his spirit. Perhaps this willingness to risk authenticity could lead to a transformation in him, a recalibration of what success truly meant. "Thanks, Emily," Jack finally replied, his voice stronger. "I guess I've just been weighed down by expectations, my own and others. We're not just our jobs, but I've let mine define me for too long." As these revelations flowed between them, he recognized an unexpected craving for growth, the possibility of redefining not just how he interacted with Emily, but with the world around him. Each sentence unspooled a thread of his carefully constructed identity, a process that felt wonderfully reckless yet necessary. Then came a shocking realization. Was this the awakening he needed? A raw exposure of his insecurities as a vehicle for genuine connections? With that thought, a new sense of purpose ignited within him. He could no longer simply hide behind his accolades. "What about you?" Jack asked, eager to shift the focus away from himself, even while he felt a burgeoning sense of momentum. "You mentioned your passion for architecture. How do you envision that impacting the world?" Emily's eyes sparkled as she spoke about her aspirations, the desire to create spaces that foster community and connection, where people could come together and thrive. It was earnest, uplifting, and infused with hope. Jack listened intently, captivated by the ease with which she articulated her dreams, feeling inspired by her vision. Yet, a jagged line of envy pricked at him. As she spoke, he confessed to himself that her willingness to pursue her passion made him question whether he was truly living authentically. The language of ambition and obligation he had clung to began to unravel in stark contrast to her fervor for a life driven by purpose. "But I know it's not that simple," she continued, pulling Jack from his reverie. "It's easy to get lost in the grind, to feel like priorities must come before our dreams. We're all pressured to conform." The flicker of vulnerability in her eyes resonated with Jack. In many ways, they were trapped in a similar fight, a battle between societal expectations and personal desire. "I'm learning that if we don't align our choices with what's meaningful to us, we risk living someone else's story," he found himself saying, the words flowing with newfound clarity. "Maybe this is my chance to rewrite mine." With those thoughts echoing in his heart, Jack felt energized, the fog of uncertainty clearing slightly. The thrill of exploration tugged at him, yet he wondered just how far he was willing to go. The two of them shared a moment steeped in understanding, but as the conversation transitioned into lighter topics, an unanswered question lingered. Would this revelation simply fade into another passing moment, or could it inspire real change? Before he could explore that thread further, the cafe door swung open again, bringing with it a gust of cold air and a figure he recognized all too well, his business partner, Michael. Positioned firmly in Jack's professional life, Michael represented the very expectations Jack had begun to question. The sight of him sent a jolt of anxiety through Jack. Would Michael's relentless pursuit of success cast a shadow over this newfound awakening? As the cafe fell silent for a moment, Jack's heart raced with the weight of impending conflict. It was becoming clear, he would have to confront not just his personal fears during this journey, but his professional ones as well. Could he integrate his evolving self with the relentless ambition that had defined him? Jack's thoughts were swirling now, careening toward an uncharted territory, an intersection of his past, present, and potential future. With Michael advancing toward their table and uncertainty creeping back in, he was left poised at a crossroad. Would he draw upon this pivotal moment or allow the past to snatch it away? The time had come to decide just how far he was willing to go in chasing the life he truly wanted. Michael approached with an air of confidence that both intimidated and invigorated Jack. The contrast between the two men was stark. Where Jack was beginning to peel back layers, exposing insecurities and desires, Michael exuded an unwavering certainty that success was defined by external confirmation. The warm cafe, once a cocoon for self-discovery, now felt like a battleground between two competing ideologies. "Jack!" Michael called, a wide grin plastered across his face, as though this cafe were a boardroom set for a big pitch rather than a casual meeting with friends. The enthusiasm felt almost forced to Jack's ears. "Michael," Jack greeted, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He could feel Emily's gaze shift between them, questioning what dynamic was unfolding. "Glad I caught you here. I wanted to talk about the merger," Michael opened, taking a seat without waiting for an invitation. Jack's stomach twisted. This was the conversation he had dreaded since their initial discussions around combining their companies. Emily listened silently, her presence drawing an invisible line of support. But Jack felt a heaviness settle upon him in the presence of Michael, as if the very walls of the cafe were closing in. "Look, this merger is vital," Michael continued, his tone tinged with urgency. "We need to go all in if we want to make the impact we talked about at the last meeting. It's about scale, Jack. We can't hesitate." The weight of his partner's words crushed against Jack's chest, and memories of sleepless nights consumed by projections and forecasts flashed through his mind. He had been that man, driven solely by the chase for numbers, metrics, and the relentless ascent up the ladder. But as he glanced at Emily, steadily observing, something shifted within him. "Sure, Michael," he replied slowly, testing his response. "But I believe we need to rethink our approach. Maybe success isn't just about size. Maybe it's about creating something meaningful, something that resonates beyond the financials." Michael furrowed his brow, caught off guard by Jack's tentative yet assertive pushback. "Meaningful? Jack, we can't get sentimental about business. This is performance-driven, pure and simple." As Jack met Michael's challenge, he found himself standing taller, his pulse quickening with the realization that he wasn't just defending his own values but also laying the groundwork for a possible new direction, both for himself and the company. He needed to harness this moment to articulate his vision rather than simply playing into Michael's twitchy ambition. Why not a merger that focuses on sustainable growth? One where our people and community can thrive alongside profit? He replied, trying to meet his partner's bemusement with conviction. Silence lingered, a pregnant pause hanging between them. Emily looked at Jack with an encouraging nod, silently bolstering him more than he thought possible. Michael leaned back, crossing his arms, visibly grappling with Jack's newfound assertiveness. "That's a nice pitch, Jack. But we live in a cutthroat world. If we want to be players, we have to make tough calls. Idealism doesn't pay the bills." The invitation for conflict was clear. He could either retreat into the familiar recesses of fear or forge a new path, one that would redefine not merely how he viewed his position but also how he wanted to impact those around him. The stakes had ramped up, and he was on the verge of ambiguity. "Then maybe it's time for both of us to re-evaluate. If we don't connect what we do to who we are on a personal level, we risk losing both," Jack pressed, his voice deeper, conviction anchoring his words now. Michael's expression shifted as Jack's declaration started to register. It was as if he was witnessing an unfamiliar version of his partner, a human element peeking through the armor of business machinations. "Are you saying that we need a shapeshift in our strategy?" Michael challenged, a flicker of intrigue dancing in his eyes. Jack sensed the tides turning and recognized that this moment could be a small yet significant step toward shifting the company culture. For the first time, he felt he had captured not just a bit of professional clarity but also the essence of what it might mean to build a business rooted in purpose rather than pressure. "Exactly. We can pivot this ship towards a destination that's fulfilling, Michael. But we need to align our values with our operational choices. Are you on board?" Jack's heart raced, anxiety mingling with exhilaration. Michael's silence stretched again, and as he opened his mouth to respond, a commotion at the cafe's entrance broke him. It distracted Jack at a critical moment. He didn't want to let life soften his resolve. But just as quickly as he diverted his focus, Jack recognized this was a crossroads confrontation and clarity rested on the other side of his commitment. The moment felt heavier than before. Would his words serve only as echoes, or could they create a cacophony that would forever change the course of their business and himself? As he awaited Michael's response, adrenaline coursed through him. Jack realized that the impending answer could either solidify his newfound self-definition or drown it in the relentless waves of expectation. Would he embrace this vulnerability or buckle under pressure? With every passing beat, the tension built, teetering on the edge of revelation. Michael paused, his lips pressing together as he absorbed Jack's perspective. Jack felt the weight of his own heart thundering in his ears, the possibility of change lingering in the air like the scent of freshly brewed coffee. This was uncharted territory. He was grappling with the kind of transformation that could alter not only the merger but his entire view of success and fulfillment. After what felt like an eternity, Michael's expression softened slightly, shifting from confrontation to contemplation. "You really believe we could pull off a merger like that?" he asked, a hint of genuine curiosity leaching into his tone. Jack nodded, sensing this was his moment to forge ahead. "Yes, I do. Our approach could set us apart from the competition. Imagine a brand that doesn't just rake in numbers but genuinely connects with its customers and employees. We could lead the industry with integrity. But it requires commitment from you too. We need a unified vision moving forward. It has to be about more than just profits." A flicker of uncertainty passed across Michael's face. The idea of redefining their strategy ignited both intrigue and apprehension in him, and Jack couldn't help but see this as a small crack in the armor that Michael had worn for so long. He took a deep breath, willing to continue pushing. "Michael, I don't want to discard the financial goals. They're crucial. But if we apply a broader lens, the profits will follow. Imagine the competitive advantage fostering loyalty among customers and empowering our team. We could build a legacy." Emily leaned in closer, her eyes bright with encouragement, inspiring Jack to delve deeper. "Let us not forget, many successful enterprises are taking this route. They're prioritizing values and ethics alongside profits. We could be pioneers, instead of traditional players driven solely by market dips and revenue spikes." Michael's brow furrowed as he processed Jack's cascade of ideas, the duality of business and humanity sparking a whirlwind of thoughts. But could it truly work? "What do you propose as our first step?" "This isn't easy, you know," Michael finally replied, his guarded demeanor betraying a flicker of vulnerability. "We need to craft a mission statement that reflects our values and vision. We could also conduct workshops within the company, gathering insights from everyone. People want to be heard, and this will involve them in the process. We're not just merging organizations but merging mindsets." Jack felt an electric thrill run through him as he laid out the plan, the unfamiliar sensation of ownership and motivation surging forth. For so long, he'd been an observer in his own life, navigating the waves of corporate culture. Now he was not only participating but steering the ship. Something deep within him stirred, the kind of small revelation that began with a flicker of hope but expanded into a full-blown fire of purpose. "Maybe we should also consider hosting community outreach programs," Jack added, excitement bleeding into his voice. "A true partnership with the community could reshape our image and solidify our presence in people's lives. We could impact lives, not just balance sheets." Michael's gaze sharpened with consideration, and for a fleeting moment, Jack thought he saw admiration flickering beneath the surface. "Community outreach," he mused, testing the idea. "That could resonate well, but we do need a plan that demonstrates clear returns." "Right," Jack responded, leaning into the conversation with newfound confidence. "It's about aligning our values with measurable growth. If we present ourselves as a brand with empathy and social responsibility, we could strengthen customer loyalty and attract new partners who align with our vision." As the ideas unfurled, Jack increasingly felt the grit of his growing assertiveness. He was redefining what success meant not only for himself but for everyone involved. Michael's skepticism began to wane, gradually replaced with contemplation, though the air still crackled with tension. Jack's heart raced as he sensed the momentum shifting in his favor, yet fear lurked at the edges of his courageous reckoning. Would they truly embark on this transformative path, or would it dissolve into another failed pitch? Just then, Jack caught a glimpse of a woman in a crisp blazer entering the cafe. A fleeting thought flashed through his mind. He had seen her before, and her presence felt like an omen. The exact details eluded him, but something inside warned that her appearance wasn't mere coincidence. "Michael," Jack said, caught between discussing the merger and addressing the unfamiliar woman. "Before we finalize anything, I need to discuss something that might impact our direction." The opportunity was there, a critical junction beyond the merger, and as the weight of his decision maximized, Jack felt the pressing urgency to confront more than just business. He sensed that an unforeseen confrontation was approaching, one that could alter the course of his life. The moment loomed over him, pregnant with possibility, directed by forces unknown. Would this new layer of his professional journey reveal hidden truths about himself and ultimately lead him to where he belonged? Jack's heart raced as he turned to Michael, who was still lost in thought, seemingly torn between the gravity of their conversation and the implications introduced by the formidable woman now standing at the entrance. The atmosphere shifted, charged with tension and anticipation. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would either solidify his newfound resolve or shred it to pieces. "Michael," he repeated, urgency creeping into his voice, "this could change everything." He gestured toward the unexpected visitor, striving to maintain a focused demeanor despite the surge of uncertainty milling within him. "I need to know who she is and what she wants." Michael followed Jack's gaze, brows knit together with curiosity, yet a flicker of annoyance surfaced. "Jack, this isn't a circus. We need to concentrate. Speak." Releasing a shaky breath, Jack stepped away from the table, caught between the need to solidify the merger strategy and the sense that this woman held a secret that beckoned him. He approached her as she moved through the bustling cafe like a hawk swooping down on its prey. "Excuse me," he said, his voice steadying as he reached her. "I think we might have crossed paths before. Can I help you with something?" Her eyes met his, cool and assessing, as if she could see through the facade he deconstructed over the years, a hard-working employee striving for respect and recognition. "I've been looking for you, Jack." Her words struck him, laced with authority and a hint of challenge. "Looking for me?" he echoed, confusion flashing across his face. "Yes," she replied, her tone suddenly shifting into something softer, a whisper of connection-flavored curiosity. "I'm Beth. I've been following your work and believe we have some mutual interests." This was not how he expected their conversation to unfold, but he felt an electric prickling at the back of his neck. "Mutual interests in what context?" "I heard about your ambitions for the merger. There is something more at stake than just business, something you need to uncover," she said, allowing a pause for her words to sink in. Her gaze was intense and piercing, and Jack felt an odd combination of intrigue and vulnerability. More at stake? Jack's mind raced through possibilities. "What do you mean?" "While forging connections with communities and employees sounds compelling," she continued, stepping closer, "there are hidden currents in this industry that you're not yet aware of. I can help you navigate them, if you're willing." Doubt nodded Jack. What did Beth know that he didn't? And could he afford to shift his focus from the negotiation with Michael? He glanced back at his partner, who remained tangible and concerned yet oblivious to the potential wildfire brewing beside him. "Why should I trust you?" Jack asked, his voice steady yet cautious. "Because you already do," she replied, her head tilted slightly as if challenging him to resist the gravity of her words. The words rang true, intertwining with his growing unease. He thought of the risks he had already considered regarding the merger, envisioning a world enriched by values and principles, a legacy worth far more than numbers on a balance sheet. But was this woman a guide or a distraction from the path he was forging? "Jack?" Michael's voice cut through the tension, snapping him back to reality. "What's going on?" He turned back to Michael, sensing the weight of his friend's expectations. "We're just discussing an opportunity," Jack replied. The conflict was palpable, a divergence between the formulaic path to success he had been treading and this promising new direction proffered by Beth. "Are we talking about the merger or a new venture?" Michael pressed, the sharper edge of apprehension creeping into his tone. "Both," perhaps Jack faltered, the gravity of his next decision twirling chaotically in his mind. "I need to find out more." The tension felt electric and suffocating, roots being torn from one foundation as new, unknown paths emerged. In that fleeting instant, Jack recognized he stood at the precipice not just of his career, but of who he was becoming. With his heart pounding and uncertainty swirling around him, Jack faced the reality of a choice that could redefine success and fulfillment. Would he step down one path, buoyed by the traditional, measured steps of corporate life, or take the leap into this uncertain territory with Beth? "Let us talk," he finally said, locking eyes with Beth as he felt the shift within himself take hold. As he walked back towards the table beside Michael, a powerful realization struck him: he was no longer just a participant in negotiations. For the first time, he was ready to take charge of his fate. But as he settled into that defining moment, Jack sensed the unsettling undercurrents lurking beneath the surface, begging for exploration. "Jack," Michael interrupted, a note of anxiety tinting his voice. "What if we can't control where this leads? The time has come to face what we can't see yet." Jack responded, determination crystallizing within him. As he replied, a wave of anticipation rolled over him, carrying along changes he had never dreamed possible, ones that could tear apart the very fabric of his professional identity. And just like that, Jack stepped into uncharted waters, with the realization that, potentially, everything, his aspirations, his vision, and his very self was about to transform in ways he could hardly comprehend. Jack's breath came shallow, each inhalation stoking the fire that burned within him. As he resumed his seat across from Michael, the cafe became a backdrop to a personal reckoning, not merely about the merger, but something more profound. He could sense the weight of his friend's scrutiny, the ripples of doubt fouling the air between them. "Are you sure about this?" Michael's voice was laden with concern, a friend's instinct kicking in. But why did he feel like an imposter? Shouldn't he direct this moment rather than let it dance around him? "Michael, this isn't just about the numbers anymore," Jack replied, his own words sounding foreign yet liberating. "This could redefine not just our company but our legacy." "Or it could cost us everything," Michael shot back, the edge in his tone sharpening. The tension felt palpable, a tug-of-war between vision and caution, the essence of Jack's internal struggle. A part of Jack longed to retreat, to reassure Michael that they'd stick to the familiar shores, where stability ruled. Yet the prospect of exploration, of venturing into uncharted waters with Beth, shimmered enticingly against the backdrop of his visions for the company. He couldn't quiet the inner voice that whispered this was where he needed to be. "You know why I took this role, right?" Jack continued, searching for an anchor beyond the storm brewing inside. "To change things, to move beyond mere profit. I want to create something that resonates." Michael folded his arms, visibly frustrated. "And what if that's a fairy tale? This isn't a storybook, Jack, it's business. And people are ruthless." "Which is precisely why we need to approach it differently," Jack retorted, his fear flaring into determination. "We can't just play the game, we need to revolutionize it." It felt invigorating to voice the ideas swirling in his head, leaving behind a trail of the fears that had previously held him captive. Michael's gaze softened, recognizing the passion ignited within Jack. But that only magnified the essence of the moment, a realization dawning that risk in pursuit of something meaningful had always been part of Jack's character, distinctly different from the predictable safety blanket he had draped over his ambitions. "Look," Jack softened his tone, "I respect your instincts. But this is my moment. I want to base my path on something that reflects who I am, something genuine." As he spoke, he saw Michael considering, weighing the implications of Jack's evolution, and the shared venture they had embarked on together. "Fine," Michael relented, the surrender laced with caution. "But tread carefully. I don't want to lose you to some wild goose chase." Jack's spirits lifted briefly, bolstered by Michael's reluctant support even as uncertainty permeated his resolve. He turned his focus back to Beth, initiating a dialogue that felt like the moment they stepped onto a precipice. What waited at the bottom, or indeed the sky above them, was yet to reveal itself. "Beth," he began, looking her in the eye, "you said there are hidden currents at play. What can you tell me?" Her demeanor shifted, a knowing smile hovering at the corners of her mouth. "What we ought to explore, Jack, is not just about you or the merger. It's about creating a paradigm shift in how this industry operates. Influence lingers behind every decision, and it's time you learned the unseen connections." Jack leaned forward, his focus sharpening. This was not simply a conversation about acquiring a business, this extended into a realm of influence that could alter trajectories. The thrill of ambition mingled with a newfound responsibility, as he felt the call to wield this power wisely, to ensure that his decisions wouldn't merely reflect his goals but also the ethos he wished to champion. "Let us dive deeper, then," he said, now fully engaged. "What do you propose?" As Beth began to outline her vision, Jack felt the fabric of his life start to twist, transforming before his very eyes. Each piece of information became a thread drawn into the larger narrative of who he was destined to be, a leader unafraid to challenged conventions, but as fervor wove through the discussion, an undercurrent of dread danced in the back of his mind. While one aspect of his spirit reveled in evolution, another recoiled from the potential fallout. Learning can bring enlightenment, Jack, but enlightenment demands sacrifice, Beth warned, her tone measured, setting the stage for challenges not just ahead but already unfolding. It pierced through the exhilaration a stark reminder that every choice held consequences. Jack's resolve wavered, haunted by the prospect of losing more than just comfort but perhaps even the friendships built on trust and shared dreams. "I'm ready," he declared, though doubt lingered in the corners of his heart. And with that declaration hung a question yet unasked, reverberating through his mind like a whisper: what depths would he have to explore, and what truths would surface as he unwrapped the layers of this new endeavor? "Just remember, uncertainty can spawn both growth and destruction," Beth replied cryptically, leaving Jack with a tangle of anticipation and foreboding. The weight of the future settled on his shoulders, and he knew one thing for certain: his journey was only beginning. As the cafe faded around him, Jack could already taste the bittersweet complexity of what lay ahead, the moment of reckoning coming into focus. What is one willing to sacrifice for the sake of true development? The storm of possibilities swirled, a tempest he was both eager and fearful to face. As the days shifted into weeks, Jack found himself navigating the exhilarating yet tumultuous waters of both personal and professional transformation. The new direction he had chosen to embrace with Beth felt like a delicate dance, each step pushing him closer to a reality where vulnerability was a strength rather than a liability. He painstakingly crafted his company's value-anchored mission, aligning it closely with his vision of creating relationships that transcended mere profitability. The board meetings were filled with moments of tension, doubt mingling with curiosity as he advocated for a business model rooted in authenticity and connection. Jack could feel the walls built around him cracking, not just in a professional sense, but in his formidable relationship with his father. He had taken the critical steps towards mending that bond, inviting Robert to share his thoughts on the growing framework of the company they had built together. With each conversation, Jack felt the weight of his past lift, replaced with a burgeoning confidence in his ability to forge a path that honored both his achievements and his roots. One evening, during what felt like their umpteenth meeting, Robert looked at Jack, his expression radiating pride and cautious hope. "You're not just leading this company, Jack. You're redefining leadership itself." The words struck a chord. Jack had long aimed for recognition, but now he realized his ambition was not for accolades, it was for legacy. The turning point came during a pivotal board meeting. Armed with insights gained from Beth's mentorship, Jack presented the comprehensive transformation plan they had meticulously drafted. The room was heavy with skepticism until he wove in the narrative of their shared humanity, that businesses thrive not solely on metrics but on people's aspirations and collective experiences. Achieving connection was a powerful refrain that resonated throughout the gathering. Slowly but surely, Jack saw a shift. Michael, who had once fiercely opposed such ideas, was now nodding along, recognizing the potential for a new paradigm. Their merger discussions transformed, focusing not just on scalability but also on the social impact they could achieve as leaders. It was during this newfound focus that everything came together. The board unanimously supported initiating a community outreach initiative designed to foster collaboration between their company and the neighborhoods they served. Jack felt the surge of excitement through the room as people began to see the fruits of their evolving visions. As the first outreach day approached, Jack encountered Emily within the vibrant community they intended to serve. Their connection had deepened, buoyed by shared passions for change and introspection. As they worked alongside each other, transforming lives beyond office walls, Jack observed vividly how meaningful connections rendered every challenge he had faced inconsequential. This was fulfilling work, something that police and profits alone failed to provide. The culmination of Jack's evolution came one rainy afternoon as he stood before a group of young entrepreneurs within the community. He shared his journey, candidly acknowledging the struggles he faced amid the pursuit of success. Their faces lit up with understanding and hope. "It's not about what you have, but how you uplift others along the way," he concluded, realizing this was what he had yearned to communicate all along. As applause echoed in the community hall, Jack understood he had crossed a threshold. His journey was not merely a personal victory, it was a testament to the power of embracing vulnerability. His past did not dictate his future, he had conquered the darkness, rising into a light that radiated through those he impacted. The transformation was tangible. Jack stood taller, heartened by each connection he forged, embracing vulnerability's lessons. He had grown into a leader who galvanized others, driven not by accolades but by impactful purpose. He had mended bridges with his father, reinvented relationships with Emily, and reshaped a company long confined by traditional metrics, and as he looked out at the unfoldings in a community he had once visited solely for profit, he felt profound gratitude for that fateful kiss that had ignited a revolution within him, one that would spark growth not just for himself, but for everyone around him. This was realization not just of professional goals, but of personal fulfillment. Jack felt solid confidence coursing through his veins, a clear recognition of who he was and what he stood for. He was not just a millionaire CEO anymore, he was a compassionate leader committed to creating meaningful legacy. Embrace your journey toward personal growth and fulfillment. You need to subscribe now to this channel if you wish to witness more inspiring stories such as Jack's transformation, and don't forget to leave a like to boost how emotional stories mark a difference in our lives. Leave a comment with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about Jack's journey. And finally, don't wait even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need inspiration and reassurance that real achievement comes from within and the connections we cultivate along the way.